so pleased about this mix. I do just love finding some music for this entry bit at the beginning. It's always been a bit of a struggle, just being able to find something that will do the job. A few people in there, I can see. Make sure to answer the chat question, of course. Would you make a goalie play with 2 sticks or 2 gloves? Just giving it a moment before we start clicking all the buttons. That feels like as good a place as any to stop that. Just gonna let that pass. Hoping that everything's going to turn on. Oh, there we go. Right, we'll see what happens. I've adjusted the video settings from last week. I don't think anybody's streaming anything hugely painful. I'm just checking some of my settings as we're going, because the amount of stuff, the amount of CPU being used by my laptop is a little high, but we'll just let people come in. Although the frames aren't dropping at the moment. Maybe if I stay really still. So what I've done for Vogueria last week, tech issues up the wazoo, but I've dropped the video frame rate a bit, just so it's not quite so high, and I've changed the frames per second, just to see if that makes an impact. Still fiddling around, but we'll see what happens with it. Tried just not making stuff sort of ridiculously high quality, because you know this place. Rough and ready. We do rough and ready here. Make sure, if you haven't already, that you hit the retweets, retweet, share it out, do all these bits and pieces. I'm just checking that the links have gone out in places. And make sure everything's all there. But hello to Kev, Lee, I can see there. Charlotte's there as well. Charlotte, of course, putting the news in the chat about the scores as they stand. I don't know what to say about that front at the moment, but it is what it is on that front. We will just very, very quickly check as well on YouTube that the stream is doing what I think it should be doing, which it does appear to be. Beautiful. That means that we can crack on. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night. It is 8 PM and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, bringing you once again on our weird and wonderful journey all the way through the weird, wonderful and wacky world that is the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But of course, we take a moment to have a look at absolutely everything from across the entire NIHL, whether it's the National as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north or in the south. Happy Wednesday evening, everybody. Glad that you're here. For those of you who've seen, 5-0 currently in the first period between the Sheffield Steelers and the Coventry Blaze in the Elite League Challenge Cup semi-final. Ow. Ow is the only way to say it. Coventry's biggest game in 10 years, 5-0 down. Could that Steelers team repeat the Grand Slam of 2009? Entirely on the cards, Jamie. Andrew, don't recognise you, but good evening, sir. Hope you are well, everybody. But so, before we kick off and start diving into the news, because of course we've got tons to talk about from the last couple of days across the NIHL, but a bit of housekeeping before we start. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Of course, follow me on my journey this year across British hockey in my Banners on the Road series. The website started off nearly 13 years ago being very focused on the Basingstoke Bison, but where the Bison have wandered into the mists of time, I'm now basically jobbing my way around, having a look at hockey wherever I can find it. Whatever I fancy going and watching that week, that's where I can go. And of course, you can check back from where I was last weekend, which was Saturday evening's game in the National Division between the Swindon Wildcats and the Telford Tigers. That entire write-up is there on the website. Freddie, it's you. Hello, sunshine. Thank you very much. We'll be talking about you about something you put up in a bit, but don't worry about that. But yes, Banners on the WordPress.com, the Banners on the Road series, Hockey Story series is there as well. Few good things going on in personal life, so a few bits and pieces are just kind of sort of paused at the moment. But in terms of hockey stories, you've got the bits and pieces that are there. The Ice Crushers, of course, who've come back from the Winter World Master Games with a silver medal, which is fantastic. So there's the interview on there with them. You've got pieces that go from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into World War II and beyond. Lots of good long-form content on that front that you can check out, as well as a bunch of other things over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And of course, YouTube, please help me feed the algorithm hamster. Down below in the description, you've got the link to where we are on Twitter, Banners on the Wall on Facebook, as well as the virtual busking hat that we have over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW, just helping to keep the wheels turning and the lights on. And also as well, it's YouTube. Like the video, share it out. If you're watching live now, go stick it on your social media. Let's get some more people in to come join the party. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Hockey stuff on the internet. Tons of fun. That's what we like. And we are here every single Wednesday night, occasionally on Fridays. Depends if I end up getting called to do commentary in places. But Wednesday nights, 8 PM, throughout the British ice hockey season, we go through all the NIHL news here on the What's Current stream. Glad you can join us. But of course, if you're watching live, that means the chat. Chat's over there. Questions, comments, thoughts and feelings, anything you want to chuck in there as we go along, because this isn't a monologue. This is a bit of a shooting the breeze about hockey across the NIHL. And it's fantastic. But of course, if you are sticking something in the chat, please do remember the golden rule here at BOTW, and that is DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we are all going to have a jolly good time as a result. Right. Awesome stuff. England Ice Hockey's Pride Week is officially in the middle. We obviously had a chunk of it last weekend. We've got a chunk of it this weekend as well. Didn't talk about it last week. But now, as we're slap bang in the middle of it, I will say it out loud and really obviously for anybody who will hear it. At the beginning of every stream for the last couple of years now, I've said, guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary. I do not care who you love. I do not care how you identify. Ice hockey as a space is for all of us. Wherever you fall on the Kinsey scale, whoever you love, as long as it's legal and consensual, boys and girls, rock on. If you fall anywhere on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum, you are welcome in this sport, and you are welcome here for all of our What's Current streams here, and you are welcome to come join the BOTW party that it is. I have no tolerance for the intolerant, I think is probably the way I would say it. And it is great that British Ice Hockey, both in the England Ice Hockey structure and the Elite League and across the country, can basically stand up for folk who spend a lot of time having their identity oppressed, repressed, legislated against, and so on and so forth, and said no. The answer is always yes. Come on in. Come join the party. Let's rock and roll is what I say to that one. Otherwise, we have news out of everybody so far, and that is that we have playoff tickets coming before too long. They will go live before too long. I'm just getting up because obviously, in the fashion of the last couple of years, they are coming out on different days. What we'll do though is we'll very quickly grab the press release from the NIHL. I should also say, it might just be me. I actually really like the logo they've done this year for this one. Let's see actually what we can do. If I can get up, this is the joy of doing these things live. Because we can do this and hopefully press a few buttons and hopefully things will work. He says hoping. This is this is the joy of live stuff. There we go. Let's get that up. So if I press the usual buttons, apologies for not being quite so well prepared. If I press that, come on. There we go. It's a little bit. We can just kind of sort of see the logo there in the page itself. If I press there, if I scroll down, can we get a better picture of the logo? Is the logo there? But what we have got, what is most important, of course, is when the tickets go on sale. So the first batch do go on sale Tuesday, the 30th of January. Bristol, the Raiders, Hull, and Solway are going to be first up. The Solway Sharks, of course, their first National League playoff weekend. Of course, having been at the last two playoff weekends, thanks to the wonders of being the Division 1 North champions and murdering everybody. Wednesday the 31st of January then, Telford, the Sheffield Steel Dogs, the Swindon Wildcats, the Bees, and some more of Bristol, because Bristol got 2 blocks. They are split between 1 and 7. Okay. Thursday the 1st of February then, others start coming in. Leeds, which is pretty big. And Milton Keynes, who get the beginning of the 1st of February all to themselves. And then on the 2nd of February, Peterborough and Basingstoke. And this is the joy, probably, of having of having John Neville in charge of these bits and pieces is that it means Basingstoke get a guaranteed block irrespective, which is all lots of lovely fun there. But it does mean that those Bison fans, many of whom of course have not disappeared from hockey altogether, are able to come and join in at playoff weekend as we have before. And there we of course have the confirmation of the timings as well. Arena doors at the Sky Dome will open at 12 noon on Saturday the 27th of April. The first semi-final is at 1:30, the second at 5:30. On Saturday evening, after which I will be swiftly running to Severnbone. And then Sunday, of course, we get the Division 1 national final between the champions of the Moira League Conference and the champions of the Britain Conference. That's one North and one South, for those of you not paying attention, which at the moment, if it happened today, would see the Billingham Stars against Streatham, and talk about an absolute barn burner of a game. And then the National Division Grand Final, 4 p.m, Sunday the 28th of April. The NIHL season comes to its conclusion at the Sky Dome in Coventry. Should be an absolute cracker of a weekend. Of course, the big thing that has gotten the goat of a lot of people is the 12% surcharge on the tickets from Planet Ice. Now, a lot of people obviously very unhappy about this, given the prices, because what you have is a £65 ticket with then an extra 12% on top, which, if my maths is right, works out at £72 for an adult, which is obviously not great. And it's one of those things, of course, where, and I pondered this out loud, if Ticketmaster ran this event, what fees would we get charged for this? And this isn't to excuse a 12% surcharge, because for me, not great. Stream very laggy when you've gone to the article. This is another one of the settings issues, I think. But still learning. Deary me, I can't win, can I? Just can't win on these settings, can I? Can I amend anything very quickly whilst I'm actually in that? What we're going to do, hopefully it's slowly coming back. It's definitely showing and flashing a thing at me saying to consider turning down my video settings or using a faster encoding thing. Trying to do that. The thing is that it's not freezing up for me at this end. Normally when it gets stuck for everybody. Right, hang on a minute. Let's have a look. Let's do this for a second. Let's go to here. Let's go to there. Just whilst we're doing this, let's see if we can't get this to change up a little bit. Right, it's... Right, bear with us a second again, folks. I've no idea what's causing the problem again. Let's see if that is any better. Still saying the encoding is overloaded. Now it's not. Hopefully, no matter what I seem to change the last couple of weeks, I can't win, can I? It's the second week in a row that we've had these kind of problems, which is really, really irritating. All answers on a postcard, I think. Is probably the only answer there. Really annoying. Not quite sure what to say on that front. Either way, we carry on. There we go. That's a little bit better. Haven't made a massive settings change there, but I think there's some for whatever reason, I just can't seem to win the last couple of weeks. I might need to sit down with someone who's a bit more of an expert at this than me, but certainly a little bit better than last week. A little bit better than last week. There we go. Hitting refresh was a good idea. So, the 12% surcharge on the tickets for the for the national playoff weekend. Now, I've noticed that one of the co-owners of one of the teams is in the chat. Hello, Ian. But the rationale has always been that this is kind of the price of the platform that's required to kind of deal with these kind of things. I suppose the question I have is that 12% every year to kind of maintain this feels a little high. Having pondered it out loud when speaking to Michael from Pucking Mad earlier, I actually went and looked at Ticketmaster's website. What do they charge? Well, they charge pretty much whatever they like in fees from looking at it. They said there's a variety of factors, which means we're going to jack the fees up depending on what the event is, pretty much. 12% better. But yes, there's the idea. I mean, to be fair, it's all very good. Am I using OBS? Yes, Bearball. If you can drop me a DM with how to sort out some of this nonsense, that'd be really appreciated. Don't do it in the chat here, because let's keep the chat about what we're talking about. But drop me a line. DM me via the BOTW Twitter at BannersOTW. So unfortunately, I think at the moment we're going to have to kind of grit our teeth on the surcharge and just kind of work forward from that point. What I'm interested to see is what happens from this point. You know, will people be prepared to pay the fee to watch the weekend? Eventually, they probably will, because even with the 12% on top of it, yes, it's not great, but for me, the issue with the Elite League weekend, of course, is that you're paying more money for less competitive hockey games. Now, the Elite League, as we know, it's a decent standard of hockey, and I've watched a decent amount of it this year for obvious reasons. It's been pretty solid. Lee, if you're having an issue, refresh the stream, mate. That might help you there. But yeah, so the Elite League is not bad hockey by any stretch of the imagination. The problem for the Elite League is that weekend you're paying more money for less hockey of meaning, because you're paying for that third, fourth place playoff game that everybody hates. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants to play in it. Nobody wants to watch it. It is a literal joke. And so the fact that at the NIHL weekend you get 2 competitive semi-finals, the National Division final, and the Division 1 final, is infinitely, for me, better value for money, paying like 30 less pounds to do so. That is a much better deal of it. Now, I've had some chats today on Twitter with some folk from Billingham. They're not happy about the potential of having to play in this because there is a massive gap between the Northern finals and the National Division and the National Weekend, where if Billingham, as we're kind of expecting they may well do, win the title in North 1, they've got to go through the playoffs and then have a massive gap. And people were sort of saying, oh, but the cost of keeping the team together. Having chatted to some folk who are potentially going to be involved in this, the spectacle of playing at Coventry is a bigger thing for them. The other thing as well that I think it's fair to point out is that these dates have been known for a while. Like the scheduling, it's not great. I don't think any of us are going to disagree on that front. Scheduling isn't good when it comes to this. But the idea that you can take Division 1 hockey as a product and put it on this big stage in a big rink, because whatever you think of the Sky Dome, it's bigger and better than any other rink we've got to host this kind of thing. And Div 1 gets to really show up and show out in one of the few encounters where you will see North versus South this year. We saw a couple of pre-season games, of course. Oxford and Solihull did battle from it in a Div 1 perspective, and we saw some Div 2 crossover as well between Coventry and Basingstoke. But to see a competitive game between the best side in North 1 and the best side in South 1 on a massive stage. Now, somebody said, playing for 100 people who don't care. I'm interested to see what people think in the chat as to whether they think that the National Division 1 title game is worth having in Coventry. Do you think it's good value for money? I think it needs the 12% surcharge kicked out of it. I think 65 quid is a good price. I think if they did that without the surcharge on top of it and just had it 65 for adults and did a combined family ticket, so 2 adults and 2 kids for say 160, I think you would have much better value for money, and more importantly, as we all really want with a playoff weekend, you'd have a full building. And I can see Kev. Kev, of course, is a Peterborough fan, long-time listener of the stream and bits and pieces. But seriously considering not going as a result of the prices, the fact there is no family ticket strikes me as an own goal. And I've long said, and actually, when Hull came into the league, one of the things that I thought Hull were really good at was not just adult, child, concession, family. Multiple different options for family. 2 adults and a child, adult and 2 kids, 2 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 2. And Hull have been really good about having that multiple price model. And most of that is because that's the reality on the ground in Hull. There are lots of single parent families or families who've been together and then, step parents and step kids and kind of things like that. We should be thinking about that as well. I really enjoyed Solway vs Streatham in 2022. Perfect hangover cure, I'd say. All PI rings have had the 12% on tickets this season. They have, Ian. Doesn't make it right. Reality of situation, what we'd like and what we think should happen, definitely within my thing. Definitely, given this is my little realm, I say the thing out loud, and that's what I mean on those sort of things. The 12% doesn't go to the clubs. It's purely a PI/IMP charge. Yes. I think everybody had worked that one out as well. 4 games for £70, £17.50 a game, depending on your own team's pricing. It probably works out, and it's a great weekend out. Certainly would work out in terms of a seating ticket in Swindon off the top of my head. Probably MK as well. Certainly, of course, I think I think what you do get is value for money. I just wish, instead of saying it's a 12% surcharge, just tell people the price. Tell people the price. It's like when you go to America and you have to work out sales tax. Just put it on the price tag. Just tell us what's there. And that's much better in my opinion. It worked out with hotels, tickets, food, etc. It's going to be 500 plus for the weekend. As a fan, would rather it not be there. Where would you rather it be, Ian? I suppose would be my thing, because Sheffield cuts out a massive chunk of the south. I think is probably the issue there. I can see that Ben from Zero Pucks Given. If you don't listen to Ben and Zero Pucks Given, do make sure you go and check out his bits and pieces covering South 1 with a massive amount of quality and stuff like that. Some great guests as well. Oxford legend Darren Elliott's on his latest episode, so do make sure you go check that out. The reason why hotels are probably going to be a bit more expensive for folk this year in Coventry, Ben, is because the Coventry Marathon is the same day. It's going to be a busy city. I love the Division 1 final as it gives a chance to watch teams play as I wouldn't normally do. It's great. Milton Keynes is the only one. Thank you, Jamie. I thought it was probably along that lines. Sunday opening game is always a good game. Better than the Old England versus Scotland game at the Old Elite Finals. I don't necessarily have an issue with that. But the Elite League, I think, needs to find a better alternative to its 3rd or 4th place playoff to be in that discussion. Because for me, in terms of a discussion as to what's the best playoff weekend in terms of value for money, the National wins hands down. Oh, I meant the 12%, not the rink. Right, gotcha. But yeah, so that's obviously a topic of discussion. The other thing, of course, that's come out was last night's fan forum. Tony Smith being brave and stepping in front of the Steel Dogs faithful at Sheffield to talk about a few bits and pieces. Now, Andy, of course, who's in the chat, very kindly sort of posted a little bit of a summary. Of course, that's one man's opinion rather than a complete, a fully accurate account. Of course, it should be said, if you haven't gone and checked out Andy's Twitter, I've retweeted the thing that he tweeted, his comedic rundown of what happened last night, including Cam Brownlee on the karaoke. Definitely worth a read if you just need to kind of decompress from life at the moment. But a couple of the big sort of notes over there. So like I say, the tweets over on the on my Twitter feed at BannersOTW, but kind of a few bits and pieces to kind of pick out there. The Steel Dogs name will remain. Good. Orange will remain bad. Those shirts are awful. They need to be better designed. I still maintain awful colour scheme. It just looks bad. I don't like it. That's purely my opinion on that front. I realise that's probably not going to change. And if you're a Steel Dogs fan, I don't blame you for not dying on that hill. But for me, the jerseys this year, in the past, Sheffield have had some of the nicest jerseys in this, whether it's the EPL or in the Division 1 North and South split or the National Division. The Dogs consistently have some of the best designed jerseys. They definitely do not now. On that front, a couple of other bits and pieces about needing volunteers for bits and pieces, which is obviously the same thing as every other team. Tim Smith will be publicly thanked at the end of the season. The main gist was that players who remain with the club need 100% of the club's attention right now. Doesn't appear to have really answered the question regarding people like Jack Brammer, of course, wanting to leave on that front. So what happens there is a bit of an interesting one as well. If they want players with their attention on the club, it would strike me as an interesting thing. It would strike me as an interesting thing to keep guys around who clearly don't want to be there, and maybe letting guys go would probably be a better one. Are you saying Andy's version of events isn't how it went down? Now, I personally heard it was Matt Bissonnette on the karaoke rather than Cam Brownlee, but I've not seen the tape. Let me see the tape. I want to see the video. Sound system has been upgraded, but will never sound brilliant unless the seats are almost sold. I'm not sure how that works. A good quality sound system is a good quality sound system on that front. So that's a bit of a strange one. The idea as well about not the way Andy has obviously the thing that Andy retweeted has worded this. The main theme of the night was for amalgamation to move forward as one, need to portray positive vibe at games and on social media, which a follower of mine did come back and say it was more about don't post negative things. I personally always get really irked when I'm either told to be positive or don't be negative. Do things right, and you will engender the correct atmosphere. If something goes wrong, saying the bad thing is bad is not a bad thing if you do it in a constructive way. And if you're making that complaint, that you're prepared to listen to what comes back. It's all well and good, and I don't disagree with the idea. Negativity for the sake of negativity doesn't do anything, because ultimately it doesn't change. If you're not prepared to listen to the other side of that argument, it's pointless. But actually, somebody might go to a Steel Dogs game, have a really good idea, suggest it out loud, and it's now going to get shot down by ownership because it's being negative. This is not the way to engage with humans. This is not a good way of doing things. And that's quite frustrating to hear. And it always really gets my back up, because actually, dialogue between stakeholders and the fans are your biggest stakeholder. Saying to them, don't talk this way, that's not engagement. That's dictation. Don't dictate to your fan base. Bad move. Especially lower down the pyramid. You might get away with it with the Sheffield Steelers, who have 7,000, 8,000 fans at a game. You literally cannot listen to all those voices. But in a smaller room with a lower ceiling, you will hear the volume of 400 people. And that doesn't make 400 people right, but it does make sense to listen. Telling people what they should and shouldn't say. Bad move, in my opinion. Don't like it. Very bad thing. Got a few bits and pieces in the chat that I can see. Wait and see what the price for the playoff weekend for the South, as I believe South 1 and South 2 will all be in one weekend. That is my understanding at the moment, though it is unconfirmed at this time. Matt, people have been handing out mics, perfectly placed, very true. Are we saying North 1 and North 2 in Leeds? And South 1 and South 2 in NK? No. Unsure what's happening in the North at the moment, but I believe Sheffield is probably the most likely place. But certainly the chatter has been that South 1 and South 2 will all be in one weekend. My understanding is it will not be in Milton Keynes, but will be further south at the moment. That is what I have been told on that front. Where... remains to be seen. It's not been officially announced yet. North 1, 2 in Sheffield, says Jono. It really wouldn't surprise me. It's the obvious place to do it. And it means everybody can get a pie, which is pretty much all everybody wants, for the most part. what we will do, do you think that this only came about due to the lack of communication and the pressure of thanking Tim Smith was a second thought from the criticism they received? I'm pretty certain it was, yes. I think the problem that they realised, I think they were kind of hoping that, I think the thing that the Steelers as a group, as in terms of ownership in the NIHL, I think the thing that they probably thought was that because the Steel Dogs are not the biggest team, never been the biggest team, even when they won the playoffs, they didn't have more than a couple of hundred fans there at best, right? And I think they thought that the noise would be less as they started making this very, very seismic cultural shift. And I think the problem was it wasn't just Sheffield fans that were upset by it, it was everybody who was upset by it, because people are used to the Steel Dogs playing in a certain way, and not even so much in a certain way in the sense of systems, but we're used to the Sheffield Steel Dogs, irrespective of whether they were first or last. They turned up with the metaphorical bit between their teeth and they played hard. And that's not what we've been seeing. We've been seeing a team that looked confused, disjointed, senior guys who'd put a lot of effort and time into the team, getting less and less ice time in place of kids who deserved the opportunity, but were not quite at the point where they should be playing that level of minutes. And the issue then was that the Dogs, as we saw, yes, they picked up a win against Solway this past weekend, slightly controversial circumstances, particularly if you are Sharks fans. But the idea that the Dogs would just have this sort of massive cultural shift mid-season, especially as well where it felt like people like Tim Smith, who's put years into that jersey, and other guys who put time, blood, sweat and tears literally into a Steel Dogs shirt, were being pushed aside. I think that's kind of where it started to cause a problem for people and where they started worrying about, and where it forced the ownership of the Steel Dogs to kind of come out and go, hang on a second, this isn't quite, what you're thinking isn't what you're thinking. And we're on, and I've said before, whenever people say, trust me, my response is, show me. Show me why I should trust you. Because actually, certainly, and like I say, I have my, the Steelers do some things wrong. The Steelers do a lot of things right as well into the bargain. Clearly, on ice at the moment, given the fact they're absolutely giving Coventry a whacking in their own rink right now. But just because it works here does not mean it will work here. They have to be prepared for needing to do things slightly differently. Wanting things in a more professional setting, not a bad thing. Asking people to volunteer, not a bad thing. Part of the sport. But also, they can't treat everything in the same way. And ultimately, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I have no issues if the Steel Dogs come out next year and everybody's under the age of 25 and they have no imports and it's like the British super squad, right? But you still got to do things the right way. Dogs were horrid against MK, about as bad as I've seen at this level for a long time when you consider they're an established team. Yeah, not a good idea. 6-0 in the Sky Dome. It's not going well. Scott Allen has 2 goals for Mark Simpson, Rob Dowd, Dan Ciampini, Patrick Watling as well. It is an absolute disaster piece for the Blaze. Even worse, it's 6 goals on 21 shots for the Steelers currently. That is painful. That is very, very painful. But yeah, the certainly from that Steel Dogs thing, obviously, Tony Smith could have said nothing. He could have not even bothered to turn up and not even bother putting on the event. But the fact he stepped out in front of everybody, good idea. Good thing, least the fans deserve. He's obviously put across his vision, and actually that's a really good thing as well. No one's come out of this kind of feeling everything was a bit airy-fairy. He's obviously put down some key markers of things that they are going to do, what they want to change, what they won't change. That's good. I think that's a really, really good thing. What I think they've probably not answered some stuff there is about some of the stuff that's come out about players wanting to leave. Thanking Tim Smith at the end of the season, no. Thank him now. If he's retired now, thank him now. If you want to do a big thing for all of the guys that are probably going to leave at the end of the year, that's great. Do some great thing about closing this chapter of Dogs hockey into the new chapter and talk about it that way. thank him properly now. There's no reason not to. What else? So yeah, there's good and bad out of this, and I think it's important to credit the good as well. Like I said, people who watch the stream regularly will know I'm slightly suspicious when it comes to the Steelers' ownership of the Steel Dogs, but there's some good stuff in there, and they 100% deserve that credit for the good stuff. I've got it on the telly. It's a rampage. Oh dear. Well, thank you for keeping. I can only imagine right now. Don't think I'll put it on. I can only imagine what it would do to the Wi-Fi at the moment. Either way, we're going to be brave. We're going to press the button and hope. Panthers 2, Clan 0 in the second. Thank you, Andrew. Now, hopefully, whether everything's going to fall apart again, I don't know. But what we'll do, I will hover in my corner up here in the top corner of the screen. Let's go through the results from the last weekend and hope everything holds up on that front. Because, of course, we did have some games last week. Of course, in the across the NIHL, which we should probably talk about. Going back to last Friday, which sees which of course one game in the league, which was the Leeds Knights, with a pretty handy dismantling of the Telford Tigers, 5-1 for the Knights there, and then of course the first leg of the National Cup semi-final between the Wildcats and the Lightning, a close, tight-fought game. But a last-minute game winner in the first leg from Chris Jones miscontrols the puck, but it somehow finds its way through the 5-hole of Will Curlin, and that gives the Wildcats a 3-2 advantage heading into the second leg in a couple of weeks' time up in Milton Keynes. Quite a long wait between first and second leg for these two sides. Plenty of time for Milton Keynes to stew on what's happened there. We then, of course, head into Saturday. Oh, what buttons have I pressed? You're laggy, sound fine. Yeah, okay. Really don't understand this. I think, again, probably need to fiddle with some settings, but we'll work it out. Saturday, then, as we're talking. I pressed there. Deary me, what a mess. There we go. Saturday, then. Bristol had the unfortunate issue of dealing with the Leeds Knights. Went 3-0 up at one point. But the Knights are relentless. It's a 7-4 win for Leeds. They turned it around very handily and went to town. Hull, in their home and home with the Bees, well, the first game, they nearly threw down the pan very, very quickly. The Seahawks, 5-0 to the good, allow the Bees to come all the way back to tie the game. And then the Seahawks win it in overtime. A point for the Bees out of literally nothing. And given the fact the Bees form has been a little bit up and down as of late, obviously disappointed to lose, but they've literally snatched a point from the jaws of having 0, and that's not a terrible thing either there. A real seesaw back and forth game at the Thunderdome, but the Milton Keynes Lightning still keep up the pace with the Knights. An 8-5 win, challenged very heavily by the Raiders, but the Lightning, that extra bit of quality, managed to pull away at the death. And up in Ice Sheffield, it was another loss for the Sheffield Steelers this time. A close game, but one that they are edged out by the Solway Sharks, who won their 6th game in a row. 3-1 for Martin Grubb's side. And then there was the game I was at on Saturday, which was the game, the 3-0 win for the Swindon Wildcats. Right, we're going to have to just do it without any of it, I think, by the look of it, for the most part. I just cannot fathom why this is so bad. I really just can't win. Can't win at the moment, and I'm really sorry, everybody. Right, we'll go old school. We'll not have any of the tables or anything at all. And just hope that it all works. And it's still saying, there we go. So, what we'll do is we'll just have to chat through as it is. And as soon as I do that, it says the encoding is causing a problem. what we'll do, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. There we go. We'll just have to talk through bits and pieces then, folks, I think is probably the best way to do it. So if you bear with me a second whilst I just reload everything. Now everything's going slowly. Oh, this is painful. This is just really, really painful. And it doesn't make any sense at all. I tried reducing the camera frame rate, unfortunately, Dave. It doesn't seem to want to play ball if I do that. Everything's going to pot now. There we go. That's a little bit better. What we'll have to do is stay really, really still and just hope everything holds up for the time being. Right. Let's get the games back up then and let's just bash through everything as quickly as we possibly can. He says, having lost his place. Where had we done? We done Saturday in the National Division. Yeah, Swindon. Swindon then versus Telford, which was a thing that happened. Swindon and Telford. 3-0 Wildcats in the end. I've written it all up on banners on the wall at wordpress.com, but yeah, just the grind of a game to watch as a fan. 0-0 after 40 minutes, which was about what you'd expect. Two teams that have played on Friday evening, playing on the Saturday less than 24 hours later. A bit of energy conservation, not an issue, but both teams just looked a bit inept going forward at times. Some really good defense, it should be said, from both ends. Both keepers played well. Rennie Marr, of course, with the shutout, but not much in terms of the way of attacking incisiveness. And then out of nowhere, Swindon get a goal and then concede and then score another one very quickly afterwards. And that was pretty much the game dead. Telford didn't really look like scoring, but positives both sides. And I've written about that on the website, so go check that out over there. Sunday then, the opposite end of so the Bees and the Seahawks went back to battle. And that one went all the way to the shootout. Hull getting the extra point again. So a 4-point weekend for Matthew Davies' side. 2 points though for the Bees against a side that they will be pleased to get kind of anything out of. I think if you'd offered the Bees fans 2 points at the beginning of the weekend, they probably would have been quite pleased about it. Bristol, well, they scored 3 goals again, but unfortunately they get a kicking off of Peterborough. It's a 7-3 win for the Phantoms in the Phantoms only game this weekend as they look to try and keep pace in the top half of the table. And where Leeds don't have a game, Milton Keynes had a crucial chance to get a 4-point weekend and keep pace, and the Lightning blow their lines again. It's a 3-2 win for the Raiders at home against the Lightning, and that is a good win for the Raiders when it comes to the playoff race, but a bad loss for MK when it comes in terms of keeping pace with the Knights. That's giving them more ammunition in terms of retaining their title. But another team that lost, that needed to win, a team that, well, a lot of people thought would lose, but get a win instead. The Sheffield Steel Dogs, a 4-2 win in Solway against the Sharks. Some controversy as the Sharks are bemoaning, and you've probably seen the video. Where Sharks fans are very unhappy about a goal being disallowed for the net being off when the net is very clearly not off. But unfortunately, you have to kind of respond to these things and you have to play to what happens. A win for the Steel Dogs, one they desperately needed. And the Swindon Wildcats travelled to Telford for the second game of the weekend against the Tigers, their third game in 3 days, and a 3-1 win for Swindon in that one. An unfortunate injury happening in that one in that one as well. A hit from Deacon Fielder hard against the boards. Unfortunately took one of the I've forgotten which of the Swindon players it was out of the game. I'm having a complete blank moment. Of course, it was the young lad. Which young lad was it? I'm having a complete moment here where I can't remember the young lad's name. Dylan Lipsey. There we go. That was it. Of course, took a very, very hard hit and was taken out of the game, which is not a good thing. So I hope, but from my understanding, he's home. bit shaken up, but the Wildcats said he was released from hospital, back with no breaks or fractures, which is what you want to hear, which is really, really good on that front. But a good weekend for Swindon as they managed to get 4 points in the league and get their noses in front in the cup semi-final. A very, very important weekend for Aaron Nell's side. And certainly against a Telford side that's found a way to kind of limit the goal scoring of what's been quite a free scoring Wildcats team. I've said it to Thomas Graham, and I've said it to a lot of people before. Good teams find a way, and they are a good team. All things considered, a bit of a a very, very good weekend there for Aaron Nell. A less good weekend for the Telford Tigers. Not just the fact that they lost all 3 games, but they only scored 2 goals in those 3 games as well, just to make it worse. Upcoming weekend then, back under the Friday night lights, and it is a big, big game under the Friday night lights this coming Friday the 26th. 7:30pm at the Castle, the Leeds Knights and the Milton Keynes Lightning. A huge game, not just because it's 2 of the best sides in the league, but it is title implications very much on the line. If Leeds win, a lot of people will be looking to hand the title over already. And as if that wasn't a tough enough weekend for the Lightning, they have a big, big game the following night at home. They take on the Peterborough Phantoms, 7pm at the Thunderdome. Elsewhere on Saturday, 5:15pm face-off in Romford between the Raiders and the Bristol Pitbulls. 7:30 at I Sheffield for the Yorkshire Derby between the Steel Dogs and the Seahawks. Swindon are back home because Swindon seem to live at home, but they take on the Solway Sharks at 6:30. The Wildcats will fancy that. Their record against the Sharks this year has been very good. And at 7pm face-off at home for the Telford Tigers as they take on the Bees. Sunday then it's about face for the Bees and the Tigers. They will meet in Slough at 5pm. And the Bristol Pitbulls host the Solway Sharks at 5:30, and the Hull Seahawks host the Swindon Wildcats at the same time, a 5:30pm face-off at the world's most versatile arena. 5:30 on Sunday as well for the Peterborough Phantoms and the Sheffield Steel Dogs, and a 5:15 face-off on Sunday for the Raiders and the Leeds Knights. There is, of course, one game next week during the What's Current stream, where hopefully I will manage to beat my laptop into submission and doing what I want in terms of the stream. But of course, it's the first leg of the other semi-final of the National Cup. The Hull Seahawks take on the Leeds Knights. Please check your local listings for up to date face-off times. Thank you, Joe. The one thing I will say with next week, because next week's game faces off at 7 o'clock. What we might do is I'll see if I can get the tech working properly. Might try to do something different with next week's stream, but I'll let you know. Huge pressure on Tim Wallace and Joe Wilson, under a lot of pressure to get it right away from home. Have to win on Friday, no questions asked. I 100% agree on that front, Jamie. Can't disagree on that with that one at all. It's a very, very big weekend for them. In terms of the National League table, like I say, if nothing's going to work on the tech in terms of me swapping things over, we'll just have to talk it through. The Leeds Knights are top of the table. What a crushing surprise. Now 5 points ahead of the MK Lightning with a game in hand. Knights 57 from 33, the Lightning 52 from 34. Swindon comfortably in 3rd place now, 48 points from 33. When you consider that Swindon didn't play a proper home game until December, what a performance from the Wildcats. 4th place is then Peterborough. They are level on points with the Hull Seahawks, and the Seahawks have a game in hand over Slava Kulikov's side. Both on 41 points, the Seahawks have played 33 to Peterborough's 34. Telford in 6th, 32 from 34, followed by Solway, who have 31 from 35. Raiders 29 from 35 in the last of the playoff spots. From the outside looking in, the Bees have 28 from 34, so of course the playoffs within reach for them. The Steel Dogs 24 from 34, and the Bristol Pitbulls at the bottom with 18 points from 35 games played. The one thing we do need to talk about, of course, is the upcoming Cup semi-finals weekend across the Division 1 and Division 2. Just looking at the North, we'll look at the North one first, because of course we got our games set. The Billingham Stars, of course, the all-conquering, league leading, top of the table, almost running away with it at this point. They take on league leaders. They take on the Hull Jets this coming weekend. The other semi-final then sees 2 of the chasing pack, the Solihull Barons and the Blackburn Hawks. This potentially is the best way to upset the apple cart when it comes to Billingham. I think, for me, Billingham just look a little bit too strong over the course of a season to possibly be caught. But if they're wanting to deny the Stars a potential for lots and lots of trophies, Solihull or Blackburn have the ability to do it. Could Hull spring a surprise? Well, we know that Hull have a good ability to do things at home. As we've seen this year, they're not very good on the road, and the issue will be, what can they do? Cup semi-finals weekend. Well, there's a few Cup semi-finals happening, Joe, if nothing else. So I don't know what to tell you on that front. You seem to get, despite the fact you should be told all the information first, you get told all the information last. So I don't know what to say to you on that front. In Division 1 South, then, we've got Streatham versus Invicta. That bodes well, given what's happened there recently. And then Slough versus Chelmsford, which is a massive set of games there, given those two are the two main teams chasing after Streatham so far currently. Streatham, you would feel, are going to be the massive favourites in that one. However, again, the Cup is probably the best place to spring a surprise on Streatham. They have not been quite the perfect side they have been in the past. And can Slough and Chelmsford beat them? Absolutely. Given the fact that Streatham lost to Oxford this year, they are vulnerable and can be caught if needs be. In terms of the North 2 Cup, it's known as the Telford Tigers. Telford Tigers 2, who are the league leaders. The team that, again, has been by far and away the most informed side so far this year. They are meant to take on the Sheffield Titans across 2 legs. And then Sutton Sting and Coventry. That's been a really, really interesting battle, of course. Sutton, who are in second place in the league and have been the ones keeping tabs on on the Tigers. But Coventry, the only side to beat Telford this year. Could the Blaze, if they make it through, spring another surprise against Scott McKenzie's side? And then down in South 2, the big result from last weekend was the last League and Cup game between Peterborough and Haringey. The Peterborough Phantoms managing to beat the Haringey Huskies 2-1 in Alexandra Palace, meaning that Huskies have to take on the Guildford Phoenix, the undefeated Guildford Phoenix this year, and it's Peterborough taking on the Basingstoke Buffalo, which is where I will be this coming Sunday, a cup semi-final in Basingstoke. And I said, I've walked out into the world a fair bit this year, and it's been good in some ways for me, for the content that I create, and seeing more stuff and getting more involved with hockey elsewhere. But a cup semi-final in Basingstoke, I can think of no place I would rather be, and it promises to be an absolute cracker. The Phantoms and the Buffalo have had some really good, solid encounters already this season. Should be an absolute classic when it comes down to it. Guildford are in fact in Cardiff on Sunday, so I'm waiting for when the second leg of Guildford versus Haringey will be. Right, they've done that well, haven't they? I'm definitely in Basingstoke. I have my ticket. I'm going to Basingstoke. So we'll see what happens on that one. They've done well. Anyway, games from last weekend. Quickly looking at North 1, because Billingham, as John ever said there, Stars for the clean sweep. But they certainly swept by the Nottingham Lions, an 8-2 win for the Stars at home this past Saturday. And Solihull very much trying to keep pace with them still, and an 8-4 win over the Deeside Dragons does help their cause on that front, as did Blackburn. A bit of a closer game for them. Widnes putting up some fierce resistance, but a 7-5 win for the Hawks over on Merseyside certainly helps things there. And then in what was probably set to be the firecracker game of the weekend, it was tight, it was tense, but Billingham win again. 2-1 they win in Lancashire against the Hawks. And then Solihull, well, they travel short and end up, well, they fluffed their lines as well. Milton Keynes did it, so have Solihull. They lose 6-3. A shortened bench Barron side lose to the Sheffield Scimitars in Ice Sheffield. That takes the Shims clear of the Lions at the foot of the NIHL 1 North table. And then the Whitley Warriors, of course, we've heard that Tony Hand will be going in for a medical procedure and will be stepping back from coaching temporarily to recover from that. We wish him all the best, of course. The greatest British player to ever play the game. We also congrats to his assistant Robbie, who's going to be taking over for the time being. But 7-4 win for Whitley against Deeside, and then Hull Jets win on the road. Hull Jets win on the road, 4-3 they win in Widnes, which is a massive one for the Jets, considering how wretched their away form has been this weekend. Either way, as we said, we've got the cup games this coming weekend in North 1. Those are the only fixtures there. Nobody else playing so far this weekend in North 1. We, of course, wait for something silly to happen as a result. You called it regarding the Buffalo, and we'll try to keep all informed to what's happening. Richard, I will be there as well. I will be joining in, doing my usual nonsense. If we need to collaborate and communicate, good sir, please do let me know, and we will find a way to get things rolling. Last weekend then in South 1, not tons of games, but a big result in the context of the title, especially when you consider that Streatham, so many men down due to suspension, but a big 5-2 win for the Redhawks away in Slough. All things considered, like I said, in terms of where the title's going, that one could be pivotal. That was the only game on Saturday. Sunday, Chelmsford put up a cricket score against the MK Thunder, 17-2. Lewis Clifford side win at the Riverside. Much closer down in Kent, and an overtime win for the Romford Buccaneers. We've said they like to hand out some bloody noses. They definitely are still pushing on. Brindley Caps, of course, has passed the 50-point mark for the season as well. What an exciting young prospect he is. Bad times for the Oxford City Stars. They announced the signing of Jan Kostel immediately, put him into the lineup, and the Stars get battered again by the Jets at Oxpens. A 9-1 win this time for the Jets over the City Stars, as Shannon Taylor is again left going back to the drawing board. And then, well, Streatham do Streatham, a 3-0 win against Solent. A very close, very tight game. The Devils have always been there and thereabouts, causing Streatham problems, but the Redhawks, with a huge 4-point weekend, pushing themselves very much into the driver's seat as we head towards the end of January, and the title looms in sight again for Ben Painter's side. Of course, we've talked about the cup fixtures this weekend. This weekend. Just going to double check, because I believe there is one other game that is going. There's one other game going on in the league. There is one league game on the docket for South 1 that is confirmed. That is on Sunday at the Oxpens. The Oxford City Stars and the MK Thunder play in a bottom of the table clash on that one. North 2. Just as we look at some of the things. Is Liam Kirk pushing through Anthony Han for that honour now, Anthony? No. Tony Han is still the greatest British player of all time. At the moment. Thousands and thousands of points. Literally can't argue that one. 14-game burner for the Stars. They are indeed on an absolute tear at the moment, and it's really hard to see who is going to stop them in the immediacy, I think, is probably the problem there. North 2 then from the past weekend. The Nottingham Lions, they can't catch a break. They lose at home. They lose 6-3 to the Bradford Bulldogs on Saturday. Whereas we had a slight preview of the Cup semi-final, and it didn't bode well for the Sheffield Titans. The Telford Tigers absolutely hammer the Titans by 10-2 at home on Saturday evening. Sutton on Sunday, they managed to squeak by the Billingham Buccaneers. A 3-1 win for the Sting as they look to keep pace at the top of the table. And an unlikely event, a 4-point weekend for the Bradford Bulldogs, a 6-5 win against Altrincham. The Aces there just unable to pull themselves fully back into that game, but a good win for Bradford. The Titans, given their League and Cup game, the game unable to be played between there was unable to be played between Billingham and Altrincham, being awarded as a 0-all, I believe, and Joe will tell me differently if I'm incorrect there. But it meant that the Titans had a chance, and their 4-3 win over the Sharks in the shootout puts the Titans into the semi-finals of the Cup as a result. And then Nottingham had to play Telford. You can imagine how that went. Telford won 7-2. Superb stuff. No, nothing to be said there, whatever. But yeah, so the games obviously Sheffield against Telford, as we talked about, and Sutton versus Coventry is the other semi-final. 6-0 in the end of the second between the Blaze and the Steelers. Panthers leading 3-1 against the Clan. And then into South 2. Let's just get the fixtures up then for South 2, because massive spoiler alert, Guildford won again. The Guildford Phoenix are maintaining their 100% record so far this season. A 6-2 win for them at the Riverside against the Chelmsford Warriors last Saturday. And we've already talked about it. Huge win for the Peterborough Phantoms. It puts them top of the Eastern Group of the Cup as a result, and also dents the Huskies' title chances with that 2-1 win at Alexandra Palace. Invicta, well, they obviously weren't in contention for the Cup, albeit it was a League and Cup game, but the Huskies with a 9-2 win over the Lee Valley Lions on Saturday. And having brawled at the end of their game at the Oxpens last weekend, bit of a quieter one down on the high road on Saturday, but another win for the Oxford Rising Stars. They beat the Blackhawks by 5-2. Sunday then, well, it was only a 2-point weekend for Invicta. They end up losing 6-3 away at Bristol, but a good win for the Pitbulls as they look to try and keep themselves in a decent playoff spot. And it was a long old journey for the Solent Junior Devils. Obviously, a decent win that I was at recently against Lee Valley, but they go all the way to Cardiff and get absolutely thumped. An 8-1 win for the Fire down at the Vindico there. Lee Valley then had the unenviable task of trying to take on the Guildford Phoenix. Final score: Lee Valley 1, Guildford Phoenix 15. So yes, as you can imagine, like I said, a bit of a tough one there, a bit of a tough weekend there for the Lions, all things considered. We haven't looked at the other tables, and because of course we're heading into a weekend where there is no league action, but we note that just on South 2, because of course we've got there now 13 games, 13 wins. The Guildford Phoenix are now top officially of South 2. Do we think that they will ever be dislodged again? I think is probably the key thing there. 97 goals scored in 13 matches, 26 goals conceded for the Phoenix. Officially, the Phoenix and the Huskies qualify for the playoffs, so congratulations to them on that front. But as we said, Haringey versus it certainly is Haringey versus Guildford on Saturday evening, and then of course, as we've had from Joe, Guildford are due to be in Cardiff on Sunday, and we haven't been told otherwise. That's meant to be a 6:45 face-off down in Cardiff Bay. Saturday, though, as I say, Guildford is Haringey versus Guildford, Peterborough versus Basingstoke, and then at 6:30 on Sunday at the Basingstoke Arena, Bases at Buffalo, Peterborough Phantoms. I will be there. I'll be doing my usual updating nonsense, and so we can have some fun with that. Right. I have no idea what to do with the tech on this thing anymore. If anybody's got any ideas as to what I can do to stop everything going crazy, it'll be massively appreciated, because the last 2 weeks of this stream have not been anywhere near the quality of output I'd like to do. Almost getting to the point where I'm wanting to have to do almost to try and do stuff on my phone again at this point, just because for whatever reason the last couple of weeks, in the past where it's been a bit laggy but generally been okay, the last 2 weeks it's just gone absolutely to hell in a handbasket. So if you've got any great ideas to kind of help me get the tech sorted, drop me a DM, drop me a message. Would be massively appreciated. I don't have the fastest internet in the world, but it should be enough where I should be able to stream what is quite a low-tech thing, all things considered, with relative ease. So I don't know why it's doing that, all things considered. It's very annoying. But if you've got any ideas, then please do chuck them along. We've gone through all the fixtures. We've gone through all the results. So the door is open. Anything we want to chat about. Not the NHL team in Utah, because hockey is heading for a reckoning, as I've said before. Five former members of the 2008 Canadian World Juniors team asked to present themselves in front of police in London, Ontario. We will see what happens on that one. But yes, questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to chuck in. You only have my apologies again about what's happening with the tech here. Don't necessarily know how to. I've tried a few things. Might have to kind of stream again in a couple of days and just use it as a bit of a tester and kind of see what happens. But if anyone's got any great ideas, do please drop me a DM on any of our social pages, any of the BOTW social pages. That'd be massively appreciated, and can then hopefully get this working on a bit more of an even keel. That'd be really, really appreciated. Can't see any other massive news in the immediacy. In there, but obviously, like I say, anybody wants to chuck anything in, any predictions for the weekend, anything anybody wants to kind of chat about, we've got a few minutes. I probably, like I say, just where it's all gone a little bit to pot, it hasn't worked as well as it could do this weekend. We may not hang around for tons and tons, but good to see that people are still hanging around. That's obviously really appreciated. Keep hearing about issues with different size pads and teams struggling. What's classified as big ice in the NIHL? I think probably Olympic ice is probably what I'd consider big. To be honest, certainly because one of the things as well that people is obviously the talk about dealing with big ice is a thing, but it's obviously one of the things that obviously happens with Milton Keynes have got big ice. Coventry have got big ice. I'm trying to think of something else. Basingstoke traditionally has very big ice as well, it should be said. But one of the things people talked about, and it's the old adage with, and I talk about them a lot obviously, but Solent Gosport, Solent obviously, the rink in Gosport is very, very small, but they have to play half their games on other ice surfaces. It's a problem if you make it a problem, I think. I've always been a big advocate of the fact that I think the NHL should go to Olympic size ice, because I think it opens up for more skill. I think it opens up for more speed. I think it opens up for a better game rather than being very small and very choppy, which I think is probably my big criticism of NHL hockey in general. That it's a bit too much of a pinball match at times. But jumped in late. Rod, you've missed all the tech failings again for some reason. I just can't seem to get it to work as well as I want it to, but we're trying. We've got some ideas. Hull. I can't remember the size of Hull's pad off the top of my head, Karen. I'm really sorry, but it's always looked pretty big on video. Like I said, I just genuinely don't remember what the size of it is off the top of my head. Bite your tongue, keep the rinks as they are. I'm just not fussed about it, to be fair. Like I say, for me, I think Olympic ice is better than NHL ice. Where should the neutral ice be for the NHL 2 final, depending on the overall winner? Is it meant? I was under the impression it was going to be over 2 legs myself, but if you're doing the NHL 2 final on a neutral venue, that's tough, actually. That is very, very tough. The thing is, you wouldn't necessarily want to hold it at the Spectrum unless you're holding it as like an already scheduled in thing. I don't know, Richard, whether you went to the Buffaloes game in Guildford against the Phoenix, because I did, and that was a complete muck up by the fact that juniors ran late and they tried to enforce a 3-minute period break at one point. Slough, doable for the size of the event, but the sight lines are an issue. Can't do it in Basingstoke if you wanted to do it in the neutral venue because of the seating restrictions. Ali Pally would make sense to the point because it's a nice prestigious venue, but it's the opposite side of London from both sides. It might have to be Slough. Romford's not an option, I think, for this, purely just because it's so far away. Like, it would not make sense to force Guildford and Basingstoke to travel to the other side of London. Could finals be held in, say, London, bigger city that might lend itself to more attention and coverage? Like I said though, Roderick, unfortunately, I don't know whether this is just because your English geography isn't brilliant, but Guildford is about half an hour south of London, and Basingstoke is about 45 minutes south of London. Streatham might be an issue just in terms of ice availability, and it's not impossible. Guildford, I think, is doable for the size, but would they be able to fit it in around everything else at the Spectrum? Slough, I think, is probably a good-ish choice because it's relatively kind of on the point of a triangle between the two. And I think probably would be able to survive holding an event like that. Romford's just way too far away. But if Guildford are in the final, home pad advantage. If they wanted to hold it in a neutral venue, then obviously holding it in Guildford is a problem, unless they specifically said, we're holding the final in Guildford and we're going to do it there. But it's the same thing, of course, my impression was that it was a 2-legged affair. And I don't, like I say, Joe, I don't know whether Scutsy is still listening in, but my impression was that it was 2 legs for both of it. But if it's meant to be a one-off final for the NIHL finals, it would kind of depend on where you go. The issue, of course, for the North is that if you ended up with Telford and Coventry, not really an issue, but there's no neutral rink between the two sides. They're pretty much next door in terms of ice hockey. Yep, get off the ice. Yeah, teams wins the cup final. It means it gets thrown off, has to get presented the cup in the like the burrito place or something like that, or gets like presented in the cafe upstairs. North, I mean, let's face it. Ice Sheffield is probably the best place to hold anything in the North. The South becomes much more of an issue. Cup is 2 legs. I thought it probably was. So yeah, 2 legs. But I don't know. Like in terms of the South, it would be hilarious for Basingstoke to make the cup final, potentially win the cup in front of like 150 people all crammed into one end. ULEZ Grr. ULEZ is only an issue if your car is old. It only affects like 10% of current cars. People need to calm down about ULEZ. If your car is old and that polluting, get rid of it. Unless you drive like a lorry or something. We ask ourselves the big question of, have the Sheffield Steelers scored again? They have not. Have they even bothered to change netminders? They have not. They've literally left Aaron Cozen in for the entire thing. Oh dear. Patrick Watling in the second, I can see here getting called for the most ridiculous penalties. The delay of the face-off violation penalty. Wonderful. Like I said, if anyone's got any idea how I can fix some of these settings to stop this nonsense, it'd be massively appreciated. Because moving the stream to do a little video of me and just look at a blank page and look at a page of text should not crash the stream with the stuff that I have. So clearly, clearly the settings or something's gone skew somewhere. So anyone with any ideas, massively appreciated. Only possible issue for Leeds is the backlog of games, especially if they get to the National League Cup final. A horror schedule from February 17th to March 16th. Like I said, it would be a lot of games, Jamie, you're right, but some teams like being busy. Some teams really do like being busy. And I think that's a real issue because the Knights, they just don't seem to let up. They have like one gear and it's fifth and really, really hardcore the entire time. But yeah, that stretch of games would be crazy. Would be really crazy for them. It would be really hard to do. The other thing as well that I would try to do. Doc's trying to shut it. Doc's trying to shut me down. Yes. Windows has done an update recently, Dave. It has actually, yeah, and I wonder whether that might be part of it as well. Viewer count seems to be roughly around the same. We're talking about 2nd, 3rd and 4th Division British Ice Hockey, Dave. We ain't rich in viewers. What we're rich on is quality of community. I think a lot of people who hop in is generally quite good fun. I'm sorry, Rod, I'm still laughing at that. I'll get you, Russell. But yes, Dave, there has been a Windows update recently, so probably I need to check that some stuff out there as well. But I did make a slight settings adjustment prior to the stream to see if it had an impact, and it's gone well in some respects, but not in others. So maybe I just need to kind of sit down and just do some testing over the next few days. Away trips to Peterborough, Solway, Swindon, Hull and MK all in that run. They need to beat them to be champions. That's the simple fact of it. And this is the thing, Jamie. I mean, it's all well and good putting that pressure on Leeds. They'll relish that pressure. The difference here, and I hate to say it to MK fans, if that run is Peterborough, Solway, Swindon, Hull and Leeds, do MK win 4 or 5? Because Leeds could win 4 of those 5. That's 10 points there on the table. Leeds could easily come away with 8, 9 or 10. that other way round, do MK come around with the same amount of points? Off subject, but any thoughts on Streatham failing to submit compliant footage from the end of the period brawl? I was aware that there was an issue with one of their GoPros. If they've not done it and not submitted footage as requested, this is up to England Ice Hockey. They have two options: do nothing or fine them. When Mike Maidens was in charge of DOPS, and he meant we had a conversation of about teams not submitting video footage. He said, "Oh, so much of getting the clips is down to the team getting the footage into us in a timely fashion." To which my response was, "You're the governing body. They're breaking the rules. What's the penalty for breaking the rules?" "Well, we can fine them, and then if they do it so many times, we can deduct their points." Ta-da! There's your answer. It's not a hard thing, but yeah, Streatham should be. Well, the rules are that they should. I believe there's a fine if they don't submit footage properly. Fine them. Like, I know that sounds really straightforward, but that is what it is. Our away run in that period is Solway ×2, Telford, Peterborough, Bees, Sheffield. So 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So the big question marks there are Telford and Peterborough for me in the immediacy. But yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible as well for MK to get 12 points there. But you flip that around, if you flip those around, I can't see MK doing as well with what Leeds have got to deal with. That for Leeds is 10, 11 or 12. Good answer, thank you. Well, yeah, cheers, Chris. I mean, I do like Streatham quite a bit as an on ice product. I've had quite a lot of chats in my time with Ben Painter. Really like him as an individual. I like a lot of the guys there. I know a few people connected to the club as well, and I like Streatham. I'm a South London boy by birth, right? So, I do have a bit of a soft spot for Streatham. I can't deny that. However, if they've broken the rules, punish them. That's what they're there for. Even more silly if the people in charge of the rules won't use the rules to do the thing that they should do with them. Just seems like a moot point to me. Like, what's the other answer here? Anyway, 20 past. Thoughts on the way Swindon have been going since returning home? Is it what you expected? I expected them to do well, not quite this well. Charlotte, I think, is probably my answer there. I can see easily being 6 points for Leeds. I'm not saying it couldn't be, but I think there's a higher... If Leeds have got a better chance of getting a high amount of points out of that run-in that they've got than if MK had that. And you know what I'm going to say, Jamie? Because one of these teams is relentless, and the other team is not quite as relentless when it comes down to it. Anyway, with all the gubbins that we've had this evening, you have my apologies again, and I just wish I could figure out why the tech is going wobbly. If you've got any answers, if you've got any suggestions, I'm going to keep fiddling over the next week and see if I can get it to work. But please do drop Lily Valley and beyond. The Banners on the Road series. Follow me across the country for all of my relative insanity and everything that I do. Games, wherever you find a game, you get an in-depth write-up. And of course, from last weekend, you got Swindon versus Telford from the National Division. This coming Sunday, I will be in Basingstoke for the second leg of the South 2 Cup semi-final. And that will get an in-depth write-up as well. But all of those games will be there. Hockey Stories series, long-term pieces of content from the 19th century to the present day, from behind the Iron Curtain into World War II and beyond. Lots of great long-form stuff that you can read there. If you haven't, go back and read. I did 2 pieces called Play Into Your Strengths, where I speak to Steve Nightingale, who's now working with the New Jersey Devils. Very proud of those pieces. Go check those out if you haven't already. As well on the website, you've got the back catalogue of the BOTW podcast, and you can download our free-to-download tabletop ice hockey game, Dice Hockey. Straightforward, easy stuff. You can play it with bits and pieces around your house. All I ask is that if you download it and you enjoy it, please do consider chucking a few quid the way of Parkinson's UK. My dad has Parkinson's. That sucks. And it'd be really great to put some money towards research and a cure for him. But like I say, nearly 13 years worth of stuff over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. If you like getting bits through your Facebook feed, best place to make sure you hit the like button there. Every piece that goes on the website, all the big important stuff, goes to the Facebook feed there. Twitter @bannersotw, best place to keep up with me and everything that's and my sort of rolling commentary and a few bits and pieces that don't longer stuff if you missed all of that. Playoffs are coming around again. Maybe another person will get randomly suspended on the last day, like Vanya Antonov did. But Twitter is probably the best place to keep up to date with my bits and pieces. And as well, there's the virtual busking hat, which is buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Clearly, I need to get a better internet connection, apparently, so I can put some money maybe towards that. But actually, what the money for that goes into is for doing bits and pieces to do with BOTW, software, hardware, bits and pieces for paying for things like hosting and stuff like that I have. It all just goes back into that. BOTW is never going behind a paywall or anything like that, but I just use if you like what you see and you want to just kind of contribute to the upkeep of things, please, like I said, buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. All money gratefully received, and it all goes back into running stuff. But we're on YouTube, and all the links are down there in the description, so make sure that you head on down there. And of course, because it's YouTube, please help feed the algorithm hamster. Get them get that thing nice and fat. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you can learn when we go live. And of course, the YouTube channel is full of stuff: game reviews, player signings, player interviews, coach interviews, owner interviews. Plenty of stuff to check out on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And then, of course, Wednesday night, the first and the best live show that deals with all things across the NIHL. It is the BOTW What's Current streams Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Another tough one this week, but thank you for sticking with us. And the fact the viewer numbers remained relatively consistent was pretty impressive as well. Regarding Stretton, the failure to submit full footage hindered the suspension, so players that shouldn't have been playing were still the next evening against the short-benched Invicta. Yes, and then there was one player as well from a Stretton perspective who didn't play and potentially could have done, which was even more silly. But there we go on that front. But that's the end of another tough stream. Like I say, any ideas to help to help with the tech side, please do chuck it my way. It's just not my forte. Happy to listen to any suggestions. But either way, what can we do when things go wrong? Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then please, wherever you are, do your level best. Please, please be safe. As my friend Scott Owens would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. And maybe next week, OBS will learn how to play ball with me. If you're in Basingstoke on Sunday, come say hello. Otherwise, join us next Wednesday night for the